Hello, it's Tuesday, the 16th of April, and we're going to take a look at crypto, which is having a really rough time. Obviously, markets really don't like uncertainty. So, whilst I think that the reaction in crypto at the weekend to the uncertainty in the Middle East was a bit of an overreaction, if we get a broader sell-off across the board, or if everything that's going on expands and increases, then it's clear that we are going to get a bigger sell-off than people are expecting. So if there was no wars in the world and this was just a little bit of a pre-halving pullback, which the halving of course is only in 3.5 days from now, then I still had kind of 60,000 as a really important key support level for Bitcoin, and I'll explain why. However, if everything goes to shit this week, which is a possibility, I don't think it's the most likely possibility, but it is a possibility, then all bets are off, and we could have a bigger shakeout. But don't worry, because we'll be here looking at it, and a bottom will come and we will be ready to buy it. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin and where we are. First off, in Bitcoin futures, which are obviously a big part, we are at a pretty interesting support level today for a test bounce. And that pretty interesting support level is this daily 50 moving average. Now, trend line, people could maybe draw a little bit of a one here. I'm going to tell you why I don't like this as a trend line, right? Because a trend line is a line that you draw when you're connecting a trend. So you connect the lows in an uptrend like this. This would be a trend line then from this low like this. We could draw it like this. But once it goes sideways, then we're not really in an uptrend. We're in a sideways. So I don't really like including this low. I could say maybe this low is what we're looking at. But my favorite trend indicator, if you like, are the daily moving averages, the 20 and the 50. And we can see in this market that previously when we get underneath the daily 20 moving average, the 50 has been pretty good support. For example, let's look back to last year when we got underneath the daily 20 moving average here. This 50 was a really good bounce support. When we got underneath it, it was pretty good resistance. And so this is what, and not only that, even if you lose the 50, when you get back above it, you're looking for it to become support again to keep going. So that's kind of where I am with Bitcoin. Potentially we could see a pretty decent bounce here. Is this a trend indicator? Not really. We're kind of in between these moving averages. But for example, say we are in a really kind of big wave fall. Well, they tend to make triangles or wedges when we are. And so we could very easily, from here, find support from this daily 50 and go all the way back inside this kind of pennant that we're building. So I'm not going to rule it out. Now, what would tell me from here that we're going higher? I'm going to go down to a 4-hour and hourly chart. I think we could mainly look, it kind of looks like we might have done 5 waves down here. So for me, I put my fibs on from this high to low. This 236 fib is key. 64,660 then in the futures. Above that, we are likely to come back to the middle and potentially to the top of this pennant. We are going up further if we get back above 64,660. If we take that same price or action that's going on and we look at those levels in the spot market, here we go to the daily. Now, because the spot market trades at weekends, the daily 50 moving average is in a different place, and in this we are underneath it. But we could argue, that we are still sideways in this range, and if we are going to make a pennant, it wouldn't look too weird if we were to follow Bitcoin futures higher from here, would it? In a sideways pennant. That would be very bullish. When you get a pennant, especially if it makes like a 5-wave pattern, it usually means a wave 4, and it usually means one more final big leg higher before this whole swing is over. So The other thing, of course, we can make here is a big ABC correction, equal, measured move, 3 waves, something like that. And if I measure from this high to low, the alternative here then is, well, if we stand underneath 64,745, which is the 61.8 level, and this previous low, so we can say that we're still going down underneath 64,745, and the most likely next support is down here at 60. Now again, if this is a nice normal world where everything calms down and resolves itself, again, all bets are off about these support levels if everything explodes and kicks off. All right, if we break out of this sideways range and underneath 60 and holding underneath 60,000, I have to say we are likely to come back to this 200 moving average. But I'm going to go out and look bigger picture at the fib levels all the way from the low here. So from this low to this high, 60,000 is also that key 236 fib in Bitcoin from the low that we made in November 2022. Underneath that and holding underneath 60,000 likely points us back to this 38.2, which is at 51,000. And because 38.2 fib levels are messy, we could end up like retesting 50,000. So we need to be careful. And those really are the two levels that I'm looking at in Bitcoin. So I don't think that we've bottomed yet, but that chart in Bitcoin futures, and remember, the volume in Bitcoin futures is quite big. It's bigger than Binance. And so look at the people trading this and looking at this daily 50 could say, well, this is potentially a bit of a decent level to bounce from, and above 64,660 we could get back up to 67,675 with a little bit of an oversell bounce and fill that gap. So do we have any support in any of the other markets that we take a look at? Let's take a look at ETH. I'm only going to look at the big ones today. If you have some altcoin requests, let me know, but usually in a bit of a sell-off, we kind of need the bigger ones to find some support at least before altcoins start going up again. Now, in Ethereum, let's start with this weekly chart. We're at this weekly 20 moving average, and we're sideways at this previous swing low, so potentially it is a little bit of a level where we could bounce from. Now, if I put my fibs on this, where are we in this big picture here? I have to say that my fib patterns tell me that actually we've got further to fall in this, but these fib levels, and this is from the high that we made in 2021 to the low that we made in 2022, have been pretty good. And I think that, we may see a bigger bounce before we continue. For me, though, because we reversed at a 786 fib, because last week we got underneath this key support of this 61.8, I think that ETH is more likely to make a bottom down here at 2,400. Do these levels line up with levels from this low or levels from this most recent swing? If I put them on, yeah, they kind of do, don't they? So we can see we've got a key level at 3,300, key support here at 2,800, and if we get underneath it, we're likely to head back to between 2,400 and 2,485 before we make a bottom, and it would take a bit of time because we would be underneath this weekly 20 and likely to wait and say hi to this weekly 50. So a bounce level, not necessarily a bottom level yet in ETH, but certainly back above 3,300 we'd be looking for a bounce, and we'd be looking for a higher low to buy if we could do that. Now people said to me, why wouldn't if you think it's going to do that, why wouldn't you buy it here instead of waiting for that pullback? Because we just don't know that that's what it's going to do. And a higher low, having had a decent bounce, is you're going to pay a few dollars higher price, but at least it's going up. So for me now, with these bearish cross of these daily moving averages, this is just a bounce, unfortunately, in a downtrend, but I would pay more attention back above the daily 20 and back above 3,340 in ETH. Otherwise, I think we continue lower. Now, on the weekend when I thought we might get a bounce and stuff, the one that I bought was Solana. And the reason I bought Solana, let's zoom out to where we are, is because on the weekly, we have this lovely weekly 20 moving average. And I thought, well, that's quite a good place. You know, if we look previously at uptrends, this weekly 20 has been a pretty good place for Solana to find support. If I measure fibs from this low to high, we're also at a potentially a nice 38.2 bounce level at this weekly 20 moving average. Now, weeklies are not very good for trade entries, but if we look at where we are on the daily, here we are retesting this level. And we know that if we get closed underneath it and get stuck underneath 132, now that we've validated this level so nicely, look at it on the 4 hour, we really have validated it very nicely. So we are not going up if we get underneath and it becomes resistance. I'm afraid we're continuing lower to 108. So that's how I'm looking at it. But because corrections are so often 3 waves, or at least 3 waves, and it looks like, you know, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we were to make another leg higher here, maybe an equal measured move like this, and retest this low, the important low that we broke in Solana, which would mean it bounced back to 161, 162. So if we bounce here, that's where we're going. And for me, that 161.5 level is my target for the long bounce. Okay, let's take a look. There's one coin that did really well, Nosana, which is the token that kind of kicked off the Solana AI system season. Sorry, if we say that Solana had a season, Nosana was the token that kind of set it off last year. Let's take a look at that chart, because this one is also quite interesting to me. This is one that I'm watching potentially to buy. Now, if I put, this is the big rally that it had last year starting in November, and we have retraced back to the weekly 20 moving average, a previous swing low, 61.8 of this entire rally. Not a bad place to bounce from. Now, here's the rule about when you do that 61.8 38.2 thing, this is called the golden ratio zone. We're in the middle. This 50% level in the middle becomes a bit of a pivot level. Let's draw it like this. Support and resistance level, it's 3.97. So if I look at this on the daily, you can see swing highs here, swing lows here, key resistance. So if we were to continue higher and go back and test this daily 50, above 3.97, we're going to go to 4.91. So we've got a pretty sure thing we can hold above here going on. And staying underneath it, I'm afraid, means that we're still in a downtrend and we've kind of done a correction like this one. So I'm watching this level here, because if we were to come down and say do a bounce, double bottom, have another go. If we don't, we continue lower, 786 retrace, and this 200 moving average would be my next level of interest for Nosana, NOS I'm looking at. So that's the coins that I have on my watch list today. I would really like to see a bounce in Bitcoin. I think that could lead to perhaps a bigger bounce in altcoins at the moment.